So the first step is to import photos for us to work with. Now there's a new feature in Lightroom 5, and that's the ability to add smart previews. On devices that we use these days, some of the newer devices have solid state drives and are smaller devices that don't have a huge amount of storage space. For example, if you have a MacBook Air or one of the smaller newer devices that runs Windows, it may not have a large enough hard drive for you to load an entire wedding to edit, or hundreds or even thousands of images to edit and store on that device. Plus, the fact that you'd have to copy them over to that device in order to do that is kind of a hassle. What many of us do is we end up with an external hard drive, some sort of additional device that we could plug in through USB so that we can access a larger variety of images. So with the Smart Previews option, it actually keeps you from having to do that. You can remain connected to your external drives. For example, if I go and look at my folders down here, I have 3 hard drives connected down below, or 3 partitions of a hard drive connected down below with lots of photos and different stuff on them. Now, the only way in older versions of Lightroom that I'd be able to edit those photos is if those drives were connected to my computer. And that's kind of a bummer if I'm out and about on my laptop or something like that wanting to edit photos. I can't edit them unless I copy those photos over to the computer or I bring one of those drives with me. But using Smart Previews, I don't have to do that any longer. So let's go and look at importing photos into Lightroom. This would be the first step in your workflow. Choose Import Photos, and this dialog box often pops up when you insert an SD card or some sort of a media device into your computer. Or a CF card reader, SD card reader. I'm going to go ahead and import photos that I already have saved on my computer, but this would be the same exact process as if I was importing from an additional, like an external device or an SD card. So I'm going to choose a folder that is on my desktop that includes images here. So you can see all the thumbnails. Now, the option that you're going to want to pay attention to is Build Smart Previews, which is over in the top right-hand corner. When you check Build Smart Previews, what it's going to do is not only import your photos into Lightroom, it's also going to build a smart preview that's going to live inside the catalog of your Lightroom project. And then if you disconnect that external drive, or that folder of images becomes removed from that computer or whatever that computer is connected to, then you can still edit and manipulate your images. It's a fantastic feature. Since my images already reside on my computer, I'm just going to go ahead and choose the Add option. But typically what I would do is copy my images over as a DNG. That's a preference of mine because that DNG file is a collection of all of the data that Lightroom needs, so that if you move that file to another computer or you open it up in Lightroom on another computer, all of your changes and modifications stay within that DNG file instead of what typically happens as there being a sidecar file or a metadata file that you would have to copy over with your actual image. So I copy to DNG because it makes a nice package of all of those changes and information and previews and all of that stuff in one file, which is simpler to manage. So I typically would choose copy to DNG. I would then choose on my computer where I want those images to be saved. So I create a folder. I like to create the folder with the year, month, and then the date, underscore, and then the file name, or the folder name, because that way all of my stuff stays in order of when I shot it. It doesn't matter what the name of the folder is. It goes in the order, and I can scroll through by date. And it doesn't matter if I change something in the folder or whatever, which would change the date of the file, but it doesn't change the date of the folder. So it makes it easier for me to go, and just as a brief example, let me go in here and show you a lot of projects that I've had over the years. I could just scroll through and see them all by date, and that makes it much easier for me to go back and find images because it's all in a nice order. So I would select a location for me to save those new DNGs to, and once that's selected, I would choose a file name, and this is going to be for your individual files because it's going to take that odd number sequence file that your camera creates, and then it's going to go ahead and rename these to whatever you put in right here. So I would put in, whatever I would want to name them, and typically I name them my client's name simply because it makes it easy for me to go and search for those images on my computer if I need to later. I could search by my client's name. It will automatically number these starting at number 1, but if you wanted to start at something different, perhaps 100 or whatever, you can go ahead and type that in. If you want to apply a preset that you may have saved on your computer in Lightroom to your photos so that when it imports them, it automatically applies a preset, you can do that. So if you have custom presets created or you purchase presets from a website or something like that and you have them installed, you can actually apply a preset to the images as they're brought in. You can always go back and make changes or even remove that preset, but this is kind of nice if you have maybe a generalized preset that you run on all of your images anyways. You might as well just have it do that process upon import, which will save you time. You can also set custom metadata profiles. I have one for myself as a photographer and then one for my studio. The metadata profiles include my website address and contact information, which is then embedded into the image file. So that way, if somebody was to view the image metadata information, it would show that. And a lot of the photo sharing websites, like Flickr that are around these days actually import the metadata in, and that metadata is available. So if somebody was to take your image and import it somewhere else, that metadata would come with it. So it's really good to set a custom metadata preset, which you could simply do by clicking on New here, or I can edit one of my pre-existing presets and make any changes to any of these fields that I want so that information is added to that particular image. I also put my DNGs in a subfolder called DNG because I organize all of my images. I like the DNGs, and then when I export JPEGs for my client, I create a folder called Client JPEGs. If I export any for the web, I have a web folder, so that way they're all organized and it's easy for me to access those images. And then down here it shows you kind of where your images are going to go. It'll show you that folder that you created. It'll show DNG because that's where it's putting those images. And then when you're ready, you can hit import. Since I don't want to import all these photos again, I'm just going to choose add and then choose import, and it's going to essentially do the same thing. It's just going to bring and repopulate those images over to Lightroom for me. So you can see over here I have my folder with all of those images. It also brought in those other organizational folders that I typically have because I had previously already added these images to my computer. So it's nice to be able to organize your images and keep them organized that way so that you can access them and not have to sort through and look at file extensions and stuff like that to tell which ones are your DNGs or your JPEGs or your compressed JPEGs or whatever. It's just easier just to keep things kind of all organized. So that is my import process. In the next video, we're going to start taking a look at organization and picking our photos to edit.